The Lines podcast, where I speak with authors, filmmakers, and change makers about the stories that shape our world today. My goal is always been to pretty much amplify voices and stories that might otherwise go unheard. Stories that teach us, that connect us, and challenge us to see things a whole lot differently. Tonight, I'm thrilled to be joined by Teasha Cable, founder and CEO of C Model, a company using decision intelligence and AI to help leaders and organizations make smarter, faster choices. Our topic tonight is, can AI and intuition coexist in leadership? Now, we both kind of thought that this would be something that both our worlds could really connect to. And whether you're leading a company or a classroom or perhaps a community, every day we're kind of balancing what data tells us and what our gut tells us. So, Tisha, your company is built on helping people making smarter decisions through data and AI, but you also emphasize compassion and humanity, which I really love. How do you personally balance structure and empathy when you're leading a team?
What's awesome is this is actually a core value for our company. Compassion is. So, we look at doing everything through a lens that says we have frameworks on one side that help businesses, for example, to think about what the right data is at the right time, not just more data. And compassion in data actually like reveals the human impact of every choice, for example. So before we would have a company to look at a dashboard, right, we want to make sure that they understand that the decisions that they're going to make can have a human impact, and they should be looking at that piece of it. And this is just really based on my own core belief that every single person in every situation has an inherent dignity, and they have inherent worth. And because of that, our decisions should actually honor that. And that doesn't change when we're in a business scenario.
Yeah, that really resonates with me as a reporter and journalist because often we're dealing with data and we're dealing with people, and it's really about the people that makes a big impact on whether people really connect with the story. I'll just give a personal story. There was a time in my life when intuition really mattered more than logic. I was really struggling with fibroids, major fibroids. And for Black women, this is a major problem for many of us. And I had several, and it was so painful. But at the same time, I was in need of keeping my job. And I was teaching at the time at a college. So I went through my doctor, finally got the health insurance, which that's a whole nother story of trying to get the health insurance to sign off on it. Finally, they said yes, and I made a call to someone to make an appointment to do the surgery, and the person said that they could not do it before a certain time. They had to do it, like, in the next year, and I knew I only had a window between Thanksgiving and the 1st of the new year, and if I didn't do it then, I might just lose my job.
Mhm.
So I thought, "Well, I need to get this done. Can you please see if there's a way of getting me before the new year, and I'll call you back?" And she said, "Yeah, we'll try, but I really can't guarantee it." So after, several weeks, I called back. I was praying. I was at this point where I said, "If I don't, I will have to sacrifice not having a job." And I had because I knew that the data said, "Okay, you're gonna have to lose your job, or you're gonna have to keep it, and then or if you keep the pain, you're gonna have to go through all this pain and go through another semester of doing that," and I just couldn't do it anymore. So I called the woman back, and thank goodness they were able to schedule me before, the day before Christmas Eve, and I had to spend that time in the hospital, for the first time away from my family for the holidays. But that was my sacrifice for myself, and I realized that data, even though the data showed that I had to deal with that in a certain way. The human part of me, and that emotional part of me, and the pain I deal with, that outweighed everything. And I often tell this story to other people, and they completely. A lot of Black women do really understand what I'm dealing with because, what I dealt with, because it's a familiar story to a lot of women. Um, I just wondered with you, I imagine, business leaders really face the same tension when you're looking at data says one thing, but your instinct says, no. How do you tell people or help people know when to trust their gut versus their dashboards?
Yeah, so I like to think about information, right? So an information can be the data out of a system or sort of your gut instinct. And when you have about 70% of the information you need, then you can like trust everything on the inside of you to fill in the rest of those gaps. And that's not even just something that works for the regular company. I mean, people like Jeff Bezos often speaks about managing to those kinds of gaps. The other thing is you can take technical data type terms like pattern recognition and you go, what does that look like? Well, as an experienced leader, you have gut feelings, but what that really is subconscious data. So you're processing from like thousands and thousands of micro decisions that you've made over the course of much time. And that, while it looks like gut, is actually equivalent data, right, to be used in that decision making. So your framing that you've kind of positioned here around intuition, your intuition and your decision for your fibroid surgery, that wasn't random, right? That was actually informed by years and years of listening to your body, listening to your faith, to your lived experience, right? So data would have told you, statistics, and intuition told you what your actual truth is. And this is no different in business, right? So you just have to know when and where to balance and apply these things. So I deeply respect that space where, we listen to something deeper than numbers. Then still, right, we know that this data, it can't measure everything, but that it can inform what it is that we're doing. So it can still inform us, especially when presented in the right spaces. So I always say that, AI is just an informant. It's a tool that's actually going to inform our decisions. It's not going to replace what we know to be true. And it shouldn't silence our inner wisdom.
I really agree with you because, I found with, like, at least, one of the other stories that I had done just recently that, helped me win the Gracie Award the second time around was when I talked to, a woman who runs an organization called Daughters Beyond Incarceration, Dominique Johnson, and she helps connect girls to their fathers who are incarcerated in prison, and I had was interested in that story because I had done research on how incarceration rates of Black men in jail and how they were disproportionate to the other populations, and I found, though, that if you look at the numbers, it may not resonate with the audience as much. You can give out a whole bunch of numbers and people just don't make the connection, but her story really made the connection because people could see her and her pain and her story and how she had been separated from her father when she was a child, and she had
Mhm.
to visit him in prison in order to just have a relationship. And that relationship that she drew from and was able to help other girls get to really made the difference in other people's lives, and that's why I think it resonated with so many people because they could see the humanity beyond the numbers.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think I've seen this. She's the one where they go through father daughter dance day. I saw this and was completely enthralled by it. So yeah, congratulations and shout out to her for building such a wonderful program. But yeah, 68% of like audience impact is emotional, right? But only 32% of like newsrooms, for example, actually measure emotional resonance of the things that we're saying and doing. So the data is a part of it, right? But this emotional piece of it, I think, is really important. So, the Gracie Award. for example, it wasn't just about the data itself, right? It's about what you did with it. Right? It
Yeah.
was the actual activity. You saw the numbers that pointed to this sort of to the invisible women, and then you made them visible. Like that's a big deal. So decision intelligence data is just a doorway to the dignity that goes with it. So it's we're talking about the same things. I don't necessarily separate myself from your experience in any way. I just have like this little concrete world that lives behind me where I can go, do is my gut right? You know, and that's kind of how I look at it. So,
I wonder
so
as
there,
as a
yeah.
yeah, I
Go ahead.
wonder as a leader in AI and in this kind of data or, extrapolation and trying to figure out things, how do you see it changing in the future in terms of how we connect as humans and connect to AI? A lot of people are scared of AI. They really do not want to really touch it because they're concerned that it's gonna take their jobs or take their ability to make decisions, but it's here and you cannot escape it.
You know what I believe? I think that people will adjust, and I believe that AI will show us who's been in the room all along because people will be able to do things so much faster and at so much more of a high quality. It won't replace. I mean, you'll have all the mediocre, I mean, repeatable, mundane tasks that can be done by artificial intelligence. But the people who've been in the room, who deeply understand situations and deeply understand like the ins and outs and nuances of how things are actually accomplished, they'll be elevated in these moments because it actually does take human wisdom to make sure that they're at the table, and because they'll have time now because they aren't doing all those repeatable mundane things, we'll see it. So the technology in itself, to me, is going to help people create more belonging for other people. So we'll know where our gaps are. We'll know where we need to elevate, where we need to be more strategic. And I think that it's going to change the way that I think one of the most impacted areas is going to be human resources, right?
Mm,
And how we think about how we capitalize human resources within an organization, because you have to rethink people management with
mhm.
artificial intelligence in the place. It's not just about go do this or go do that task. It's really about how can we look at what our outcomes are and get the best out of the people who have the people skill to do something. And I actually think that's what we're on the forefront of right now. If people were paying attention, this is the best that we can get out of artificial intelligence right now is what we can get in elevating and understanding people.
But also that also brings to mind when you were saying HR and the number of people that are being laid off, because of AI. Just recently, I think it was, Amazon, which said that they're in Seattle, they're laying off a number of people because of the AI technology, and I'm just wondering how are people going to how people gonna handle that? Because it just feels like right now, everything's falling apart in the world in terms of, social services and everything else, and it just feels like the world is more urgent. You have to figure out things so fast, and I wonder how we kind of uh, bridge that between the urgency of getting everything done and then the humanity of ourselves, just the everyday dealing with your kids and dealing with going to the grocery store and everything else. Have you ever thought of that? Has that crossed your mind?
You know what comes to my mind is the word preparation. So I fear that what we aren't doing as people is actually preparing for this new future in the right ways. So if I'm looking out right now and I see the kinds of impacts that are being had, and what I know to be true is that artificial intelligence is not ready yet to take over certain skill jobs, right? And there's certain, like, don't try to be a clinician AI because you don't have the data to do it. Like, leave that to the clinicians for now, right? You can, though, change how an office in the medical industry runs. We can do that. So if I'm watching that from the outside, then I think us, the people, need to be preparing ourselves by demanding that there be some change in how we skill ourselves. So, what does education actually look like right now? Right? How are we thinking about even government? Right? How are we thinking about the systems that are currently upheld to support us? I mean, I think there's a ton of self sufficiency that needs to be sort of reimagined in how we think about things. How can we use these tools to recreate how we're going to move in these spaces so that we don't get left behind, so that it doesn't overly disrupt? A lot of leaders have been learning about AI for years and years and years. Some of the largest companies in the world are very well prepared for the current digital transformation. The people need to be thinking about their own preparation for this digital transformation. And we don't have to fall into like where the people human part isn't there, but we need to write the rules, right? We need to actually make the decisions about how this is going to work and not just leave it in the hands of the largest companies in the world.
Do you think that some of the you mentioned medical, which I thought was very interesting because I went to my doctor today and they had this new system that they had put in and they were dealing with it. And I was like, well, AI is becoming, the thing and you have to use it. And he said, yeah, but there's a lot of checks and balances that are not being done. And he said that, I'll give you an example. He said, I had an individual who had a problem with their liver, and the medical technician had, or his doctor pretty much said that his right kidney was the problem, but the AI put left. Everything was left kidney, left, 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 and they didn't want to remove the left kidney, it was the right kidney. Now, had he not flagged it, this could have been a major problem for an individual who may have a failure on the left and you remove the good one on the right. So there has to be some, I guess, checks and balances and things where individuals are looking at, how do we frame this? How do we make sure that there's no prejudice? Because people are talking about face recognition and how that they're using it for criminal prosecution, and the person doesn't even look like the person that they're looking for. So, I think some of those checks and balances have to be put in place. What do you think?
Yeah, I think in everything you build right now, you're going to have to put checks and balances. The technology is not mature enough to know what our, 25, 30 years of experience knows, right? It hasn't sat in the room. It doesn't feel and touch. It's mathematics. It's got a predictable value coming on the other side. And of course, any prediction can be wrong because none of us knows exactly what's going to happen in the future. Why do I say that? I say that because, of course, you have to have checks and balances. Even the generative AI tools that we're using today consider those checks and balances. They have human review systems. This is why you have slots of LLM data that isn't trained up to today, because they've got to train the data, right? They've got to go
Right.
through a process of making sure that that it's accurate or not. And for a long time, that was done with human oversight. So I think that that's still the case. I think the difference is, imagine if you're in that medical industry, how
Mm.
can you have the tool or the system that provides that quality oversight over that data? So as I'm looking at those outputs that are coming, right, have making sure that for our specific use case, I utilize my expertise to be the check and balance, and then building the tools that become the guardrails for the AI. That's what I think is a big part of the future. It's the knowledge part of this all. It's how do I take what I know and understand and then utilize it in technology to support how the future technology is built. We do not have to let this run off the tracks, right? We don't have to let this go wherever it wants to go. We can have all things in order, right? This technology, we're innovative people, right? We're built to innovate. Uh, we don't have to innovate the wrong things. You know, we can do this the right way, but we all have to be aligned too on what is right and what is wrong. And the reason why I say that is in that medical scenario, we have to be aligned on whether or not this AI should be the final determinant, as an example, on whether it was the left or the right kidney. This AI could point out to us the confidence level based on the information that it has. I'm about 95% confident that it's the left or the right. That's decision intelligence. That's a much better use case for these tools than is it's the left one when it doesn't know that for sure. It's saying it's likely the left one, right? But the consequences are huge. The unintended consequences are huge. So we
Right.
can't take that risk. So I think quality review or using tools like decision intelligent tools are more likely the future than is just straight let's let AI decide for us. Let's let
Yeah.
AI help us identify and read data real quick, right?
Mm.
Let's do it. Let's do that, and then let human beings use what we've seen, touched, felt, and understood for 30 years.
Because
For
you think
now.
it's well, yeah, because you
Yeah.
think it's underdeveloped and still developing, do you think it's dangerous for people like the police agencies to use this technology for, like, face recognition when it comes to identifying a suspect and such?
No, I think so I don't. I think that that's a good use case. I think anything like that, I think facial recognition is a good use case. I think advance the technology so that we don't have bias situations. So who's going to build that? But I think it's a good use case. And then what am I going to do? If I'm using it to quickly identify the potential faces that might be with X amount of certainty, I'm not deciding that it is that person. I think that's the fundamental difference. And then the human comes in and makes the final decision and has to review the levels of confidence in what has happened. But what it does do, it takes away some of the time and maybe takes away some of the burden, even on the person who might be accused. Because if I got 10 of these pictures and immediately I know 5 of them are not it, right? 5 of them are not it. Let me just keep the other two. I can't see how that hurts us, right? I do see how it hurts us if we never advance the technology to handle the multiple types of faces and bodies that people have. I can see how it hurts us if we don't have a human in the loop.
Mm. I think that I, in a way, a little bit disagree because of how many different stories I've seen where individuals were identified as being a suspect when they were not even close to the picture, and the police officers were still using that as their standard, that that was what is this is it, and you are it, regardless of whether you look like it or not. So I
But
think
that
that
was
in
the
a way
human, right? The
right,
human did that, not the machine. So this is where I say again, that was a human decision to say I'm going to stick with something that doesn't make any sense. That's not a machine problem unless I continue to train the machine with that bad information. But
mhm,
remember, I'm saying put the good people in and hey, good people, where you at who want to do things the right way? And we shouldn't forego the technology because we making bad decisions as people because we're racist or we're whatever we are. No, where are the non those people? Where are the people with good hearts and clean minds who want to come in and use the technology in the right way and build the technology to do it the right way so that humans aren't sitting up there looking at 5 people who they know are not the people and doing it anyway. See, that's what I say. People gonna people every single time. We can't blame that on the machine.
it's funny, but, I remember us talking a little bit earlier, and we were talking about intuition, and, I'm wondering, do you think, because you're very, very into this the whole AI and what it's doing and how it's evolving, do you think there's gonna be a world in the future where AI actually enhances a person's intuition?
hmm Um,
How so?
I
I mean,
yeah, I'm gonna tell you why.
intuition
So
is
how
my gut, you know?
if I can go through, so here's an example. So if I got 20 situations on the table, and I can be reminded very quickly of all 20.
Mm,
Because let's take a sales call as an example. And I had 20 sales calls, and here's how they all went. And my AI knows how all 20 of those calls went and can quickly remind me of some key things that went on those calls. My gut is enhanced by me having that information in front of me. So that's how I see it. I can do more with less time. I can recall more that I don't have to just recall in my head. And it becomes a little bit more factual because a lot of times we remember what we want to remember, right? I was on that call and he said he was ready to buy right now. When the truth is, he said, I'll think about it. Okay, well, I didn't remember it like that because I wanted to remember he said he was going to buy right now.
right.
So think about the AI now is telling me, no, this is what he actually said. And because I have the 20 instances of that, not just the one that I can remember in that moment, my instincts are improved. My decision making is improved in that moment because my instinct is not going to go towards a faulty decision just cuz.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
fact that you're kinda saying that AI is kind of reflecting a person's, uh their intuition based on the data. So you're kinda, like, looking at the data in a big way and then kind of extrapolating a smaller or final decision based on that, and I think that that's a really good thing. I wonder if we could leave, people with one thought because our time is running short. I know one thought that I have is that clarity really in my world is connection, to yourself and to your values and the people you serve, and data kinda like is like the map, but intuition is really why we are on the journey in the first place. What would be your, I guess, final thought in terms of how AI connects to our intuition and our gut, in our just our daily lives?
I think that if we think about AI as a tool, um, and not as like people, right? It's just a tool right now, and then we know that that tool leverages real information. If we know that, and then we combine them, then we become more powerful. We combine these pieces together, and that's what I would say. I would leave people with that. Like, let's ensure that we're thinking about AI in realistic ways. These are tools, and there's different versions of AI, not all generative AI, right? Tools that we use, they leverage data, and then we use our human ability to combine with that, and wow, it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, Teasha. It was such a refreshing conversation, a reminder that
Yes.
the heart meets technology, leadership becomes human, and a human again. And that we want to use our humanity in connection with AI to make a better world. So I appreciate you. Thanks so much for joining this wonderful conversation. And I hope that all of you
Yes.
who are watching will have learned something and can gain something from what our conversation was today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you. And thank you for being a person who's a matter of the heart. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate your ability to tell stories and how important that is, to our everyday lives. Like, if we don't have stories, we really just don't even understand how to navigate the future. So thank you.
And that ends our broadcast today.
Fantastic.